have it. We got the soul brother number one of a kind, Onyx Truth. And here we have my two guests, my first show, Malcolm and Rainier of LAG, which is Love Life of an Asian Guy. Would you guys like to give your introduction?
Sure.
Yeah.
So my name is Rainier Meningding. I am the creator and author of The Love Life of an Asian Guy. Initially started off as a blog on WordPress and it moved on to Facebook, the Facebook pages. So we've been writing for several years, but within the last few years sort of had major growth. But we talk about a lot of things, primarily about race relations, intersectional feminism, and we do an analysis of pop culture, whether it's international or American.
All right. Malcolm?
All right. My name is Malcolm Bevel. I'm a graduate student at the University of South Carolina. I also am a part of the Love Life of Asian Guy as the moderator. If some people will know, I'm the guy with the band hammer or the infamous side eye. No, we enjoy ourselves a lot with our post on that page, and I try to add some commentary as best as I can as being a black man in America. I also do research in terms of health disparities in the black community as well as other communities and other populations. And I'm also very heavily involved in my fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. So that is me.
Oh, snap. All right. All right. The first topic we're going to talk about is the ally system, the white allies that exist. And for those who are listening, in this civil rights fight we have the primary movers and shakers, which are usually people of color or people of the specific gender, color, or human description at hand. In regards to racism, you have people of color, and you have white folks who follow, or should follow, and sometimes, a lot of times, white folks who wish to be abolitionists, they may get out of hand. They may get a little egotistical, or they may take themselves too seriously. They may want to, center everything on them or their ethnic group in America, and that's where we may have problems and stuff. Um, so, so Malcolm, what is your take on toxic white ally? What's your experience with that?
Honestly, it just has pretty much surfaced in the last 2 weeks, if you will. More specifically, last week. My experience, and I just actually look at allies holistically, but if we're talking about anti-racism, combating anti-racism, our main allies are comprised of white people. I would say toxic in the sense of people who are not humble about their work, no matter if you are somebody who identifies as white and you're, a part of the movement to combat racism. If you are a man like we are, we're cisgendered males, if I'm not mistaken, and we're fighting against sexism, misogyny, whatever you deem yourself in terms of an ally in the movement. The toxic allies are not humble. They think that they are above and beyond reproach, that they cannot be critiqued. And that's very problematic, especially when we're trying to combat a system that has already tried to separate us into these different classes in terms of gender, race, income, things of that nature. And it's really not a white versus black or a black versus Asian or a man versus woman. It really is in us, the American people, if we're talking solely about America, versus a systematic problem perpetuated by certain individuals. And when you have allies that aren't humble in this fight, that can cause tension within. And that's a tension that supremacy identifies with and will try to exploit.
I agree with that there. We should take Rain.
So, as far as toxic white allies, I mean, for me, I've sort of run into them throughout the gamut of me blogging on the page. I think the first instance was when I was writing primarily about interracial dating, And it was right around the time of the Trayvon Martin incident, and I started to talk about it. And all these people who initially followed me to get all this relationship advice, they were sort of a little bit jarred because they were so used to me talking about all this relationship advice, and then I started talking about police brutality, and all these white people who had joined the page were upset. They were like, this isn't the content that I subscribe to. Like, you need to go back to doing that thing that you used to do. Why aren't you doing this thing? And it was really annoying because, it's the love life of me. It's not you. It's not. It doesn't. I keep telling people, if I want to write about chocolate chip ice cream and which one's my favorite, and if I want to go do a video of me reviewing Bluebell ice cream, then I'm gonna go ahead and review Bluebell ice cream. And so it was really annoying. And I think that going back to what Malcolm was saying, I think it's a matter of positioning, and it's a matter of these white allies who are essentially, I guess you can compare it to being a fan of a football team and watching as an audience member and cheering on and going to these games, but then being so invested to the point where you're like, what the hell, like you lost, like we lost this, and like, you ruined this for us. It's like, well, no,
It's like
I understand that you're like cheering on the sidelines. Yeah, exactly. But you're not the one who sustained the injuries. You're not the one who had to break their thumbs catching the ball. Like, we are the ones doing the work. And I think that it becomes toxic when the person watching feels like they're the person who's doing.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think there's this one movie called The Fan with Wesley Snipes and Robert De Niro. It's like an old '90s movie. That kind of what you said. That movie kind of is an analog to what you're pointing out there. So the fan
I've seen that.
Yeah, the fan got kind of carried away and like, yeah, that's an awesome movie. I think, if you haven't seen that movie, check that one out. The Fan.
The Fan, okay.
Snipes, Robert De Niro, and it has John Leguizamo in it as well.
Okay.
Awesome movie from the '90s. Yeah, I think I agree with all of that. It is really possible for an ally to totally get carried away. One of the primary things I see an ally do is center everything on them. Another thing I see an ally do, which is the worst, is the absolute worst, is when they say stuff like, they're like, there's a confusion, usually it's a miscommunication, confusion around everybody, and they're like, hey, I'm doing this for you guys. It's like
we didn't necessarily
complex
thank you for the help, but we didn't need you because we've had this on our own for the longest. But okay.
I mean, I'll say they're necessary, but they're not doing it for us at all. It's not for us.
Yeah,
it's for white people. It's not for us. Like when it comes to sexism, I don't say I'm doing it for women. I'm saying my answer is that I'm doing it to fix men. I'm doing it to fix us. I'm not doing it for women. So I'm not going to be there and be like, if there's a miscommunication somewhere and it looks like I'm being attacked by a bunch of ladies or whatnot in regards to the anti-sexism fight, you're not going to say, I'm not going to be like, whoa, I'm doing this for you guys. Like, I'm not going to do that. When a person does that, it makes it seem like it's the humbleness that you mentioned earlier, Malcolm, is totally gone. It's non-existent.
That's when motives are questioned. That's when motives are questioned.
Yeah,
just being real about it. I mean, we could talk about allyship in war, within various wars throughout our history, and we can apply that to right now. When you center it around yourself, when it originally wasn't about you, then we have to question your motives. Like, you get the side eye. You're like, oh, you're doing this for us? Okay, I mean, we appreciate your help, but I mean, so we're just trying to give you constructive criticism. I mean, what's your issue? So then you start to question them and what their true motives are. Are they genuine behind this, or are they trying to get this for Facebook likes, which I know has come up many times on your page, Rainier, and how people have even questioned you in terms of when you talk about anti-black racism. And I see it, and I get the hesitation from some people. I get why they are apprehensive, but you can tell if you've been in this long enough, and if you at least try to ask questions instead of assuming, you can tell who's doing it for likes versus who's doing this because they feel they have a calling to do this.
Yeah. One of the things that always comes across is like, because I try to deal with I try to handle a lot of these white allies and stuff, is the fact 9 times out of 10 they'll get paid more than a person like myself would to say and relay the same message.
Mm-hmm.
And my answer to that, because I'm a consequentialist, which is, it's not a conservative, it's not a liberal, it's something else. Because I'm a consequentialist, I'm an ends justify the means type of guy. So I don't really care. I don't care for credit. I don't care if someone like put me on a pedestal and put a medal on my neck. I don't care about any of that. Only thing I care about is the results, is the mission. Mission complete, yes or no. That's what I care about. So that right there, I think that if a person is an ally, they need to have that type of attitude where they don't care about credit, because you can't. A lot of these folks, we don't know who they are. In history, the freedom riders, there was a couple of white folks who got killed. They got lynched, so to speak. We don't know their names. There's numerous other white abolitionists that took place in the Civil War time period, and we don't know who they are. They're invisible. They just existed. I think we know of like Thaddeus Stevens. He was like a congressman. Abraham Lincoln. That's it. There's we really don't know who these white folks were back then. There's many of them we don't know who they are. Right. So white folks need, if you wish to be an ally or an abolitionist, as I state.
I like that word better too.
Yeah, you need to understand that everybody's going to remember Frederick Douglass. No one's going to remember Thaddeus Stevens. Everybody's going to remember Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. No one's going to remember those white freedom riders. They also got milk spilt on their heads as well. It's a thankless job. This is a thankless position. Period.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's difficult. So
and I think I made this analogy the other day about how you can't hold open the door for someone and then let them walk through and then say, hey, aren't you going to pay me? Like, where's my $5? Like, you have to do this because you legitimately want to do it. And I think that when the allies start feeling like
they're owed,
when they feel like, yeah, exactly, when they feel like they they're on our payroll, when they feel like it's not so much that they're doing it as a favor. It's more it's more about you volunteering your services. And I think that a lot of them feel that way. They feel like, oh, I'm dedicating this time for you guys. Like, I'm writing about these things. Like, why aren't you happy about this? Like, I mean, I'm doing the least that I can do. Like, right now I could be racist. I could be racist, but I'm not.
God,
so.
And how many times have we heard that on your page, man?
Oh my gosh,
I've
exactly.
lost so much count on that. It's like, well, I saw it on a different post actually, and it was a young lady who. It was a post, and I'm going to bring it up because I went to 2 HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, and there's a cultural difference between black bands versus white bands. And that was the title of the post, and people were like, well, I mean, if you want to be technical, you could just say HBCUs versus PWIs. And this young lady, she jumped in there so defensively, talking about, well, this is racist, because this is just perpetuating the divide. This isn't the 1940s anymore. I could be racist, by spewing all these other racial slurs, but aren't you happy I'm not trying to continue the racist divide? But her original comment was talking about, so don't be mad and trying to pull the race card if you get pulled over by the cops. So we're all sitting there looking at her and we're like,
whoa.
Time out. So you could be racist, but you're not, because you're not, sitting up here saying the N-word or any other anti-Asian slur or whatever, but you just played a racially charged card yourself by saying, don't cry if you get pulled over. Mind you, she said this, and this was the same week that the jury in Texas decided not to indict about Sandra Bland.
Wow.
But you're not racist. Okay. That's okay. And I couldn't even call her an abolitionist ally or whatever. This is just a random person who probably honestly thinks they're not racist. And if this is the type of people that we deal with, whether civilian, military, cop, whatever, that's a scary thing. And then the fact that we have allies saying that, boggles my mind.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know what to make out of that. That's categorically absurd. Holy shit.
It's just I was almost speechless. Almost.
I think that one of for a white abolitionist to be a great ally, they didn't know that there's no such thing as not racist. I mean, everybody thinks they're not racist. Adolf Hitler. I mean, if we were to time travel to antebellum South, apartheid. Well, we're still in apartheid America, but antebellum South. 1861, right? We meet a slave runner, a slave master, and say, "Hey, you're racist. Because how you treat your folks and what you're saying, your ideology of life in regards to folks, you're a racist." He's gonna be like, "Huh? What you're talking about? I'm not racist." No one ever thinks they're fucking racist. There's no such thing as an actual racist who's like, "Damn, man, I'm a racist motherfucker." I mean, it just doesn't exist.
It doesn't.
Dylan Roof doesn't think every racist thinks they're fucking justified. Donald Trump, he totally thinks he's justified. He don't think he's racist. Most Republicans who
I'm just not PC. No,
who engage in
racist.
white racial animus.
You're racist. I'm sorry.
As a matter of fact, I wrote an article on that. Is on Donald Trump, and part of it was approaching the PC thing. I don't like being politically correct either, but there's a difference between political correctness and what's intelligent. When you say that you will bomb you'll kill the women and children of some person you think they're a terrorist that's not, I don't like being politically correct. That's not being politically correct. That's just being stupid. That's not political correctness to not
being foolish.
Target civilians. That's intelligent. So what they really are doing, they're obfuscating intelligence with political correctness, and they choose stupid each and every fucking time. It blows my mind. Yeah, we can curse on this show, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, kind of like, I don't know, man. But long story long, every single person who's a racist or racist as a description, they don't know, they don't care, they don't identify themselves as racist. So that's the worst thing that a person can say, a white ally or anyone can say, is that I'm not racist. It's the worst thing.
If it's not, I'm not racist. It's, well, I could be racist, but I'm not, and it's like.
And one of the things that you always hear.
I never heard that one before. That's funny.
It's like I could be, I could act like it, but yeah.
What you were saying, Ray?
Yeah, like one of the things that you always hear is like, gosh, what was I about to say? Well, like in this whole discussion of like, oh, well, I'm not racist. One of the things that people say a lot is, well, everybody's racist. Everybody has a little bit of racism.
That's another one too.
And I think for a lot of
make
allies,
a list of this.
And I think the thing that allies need to do, I think that what people need to do, in general, whether you're talking about racism or whether you're talking about sexism, is to not define yourself as, oh, I'm here, like I'm not racist. Because I'm not saying that I think that, that everyone is inherently like, oh, everyone's inherently racist or anything like that. But I do think that people are constantly getting over that. I do think that people are constantly checking themselves, and I think that's an important thing. I think that if you are conscious of these thoughts, of these, prejudiced thoughts, and you know that like that's not right, or I shouldn't be saying this, or this isn't inclusive, I think that's the thing that's important, because when white allies think that they have arrived, they think like, oh, well, racism's bad, like I'm just like not racist. I think that they think that they have done all that they can, and I think that it's not that easy.
It's a dangerous mindset to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like one question I have for you guys: do you believe that they are needed or necessary to exist and stuff?
If I gotta think about it, it's not like we can't do it by ourselves. It's just always good to have help. Because I mean, arguably, those who have been what one would deem an oppressed population, we've made it work. Whether it be, gentrification among the black community, and you know how ghettos were formed and things of that nature. And Rainier, you had posted this on your page.
Mm.
Like we made something of it. So when people are talking about these ghettos and you don't know how to keep them up and things of that nature, and it's like they never were upscaled to begin with. I mean, you gave us crap, so I mean, we tried to make something from this crap, and it is now our crap. So
Yeah.
how dare you diss what you gave us? The wage
Yeah.
gap, the wage gap, which is still being debated, that was given. So then, when people who are an oppressed population have been doing it for the longest, I truly feel that those oppressed populations are stronger than what society believes. So it's not like we can't do it by ourselves, but everybody needs help from time to time. So I don't know if it's necessarily, maybe I am saying in a roundabout way that they are necessary, but I don't know if I like the word necessary. It's always good to just call a friend. I would say it like that.
Okay. All right, Rain. What's your take?
Um, no,
Sweet.
I don't think that they're needed. I mean, I know
What
it's
is it?
sort of a blunt way of saying it, but I look at it like this. Um, if you stab me in the chest with a knife, you can't pull it out and say like, "Oh, see, I helped you. I helped you get better." It's like, no, well, you just stopped doing the thing that was hurting me. And
Hmm.
so when white people say that, oh, like, you need us, I'm essential, like, you can't do this without, and I hear that, I read that comment all the time where people
Hmm.
think that that we need them, and I think it's more like if white people just stopped being racist, even the white allies, if white allies just never did anything, and we just had white racist people stop being racist, the problem would go away. So it's not a matter of them.
Pretty
It's
much.
not a matter of them helping to push us up the hill and to push us up the mountain. It's a matter of whoever's at the top, to stop throwing rocks.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree there. Using a bit of your analogy there, I'll say that they are. I don't want to use the word needed either. I'll say that they are necessary, like a necessary evil. They are necessary, not to push us, up the mountain, but to, while being on that mountaintop with those who are throwing rocks, is to push those fuckers throwing rocks off the fucking mountain, or pretty much. Okay.
Or cage him some.
This is the analogy I usually use. You have in every nation, every fully functioning nation that's powerful, you have a grandstanding armed forces, where your ground forces troops, which can be Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, any the folks you see that are fighting the war, right? Then you have your clandestine operations, which is like your CIA, MI6, KGB equivalent, right?
Hmm.
And every nation that's successful in their wars, in their conflicts, have those things.
Hmm.
You have your clandestine ops and you have your ground forces. And when it comes to the white allies, I like to make the analogy that they are like the ground forces type. No, they're like the clandestine types. Like, say they are the equivalent to, if we are America,
Hmm.
they're the equivalent to the Russian KGB agent that's turning against the KGB. And I think that's
Okay.
very necessary. And here's why: because they have so many agents within our ranks, supporting white supremacy, that is
Hmm.
not even funny. They have so many. There's so many like Ben Carsons, so many David Clarks, that sheriff in the Midwest. There's so many. They
Yeah.
have so many agents within our ranks, within our population, that's just to the detriment of society as a whole. That's not even funny. We need something like that. We need something. We need a counter to that.
Hmm.
So if one group has a clandestine operation, and another group does not. I believe, as a strategist, I believe that the group that doesn't have a clandestine ops will fail. If you don't have a counterintelligence agency or to counter your Ben Carsons and David Clarks and shit, and if you don't have that, then you're going to fucking fail. So
Sure.
I think that that's a necessary thing as a grand scheme of things, but their job is different. You're not going to employ a spy to hop on a battlefield. As a matter of fact, if you know anything about American history, when we did that, we lost those wars. Vietnam. You know what I mean? So it's like when you mix the clandestine forces with the ground forces, it gets really messy. So they have a specific job. And they should not confuse themselves with the Army general, the 4-star, 5-star general on the battlefield. You're not that guy. You are invisible. No one knows who you are. If you were to die over enemy lines, there's plausible deniability placed. No one is going to know that you existed. So they are supposed to be invisible. That's where it's at. You know what I mean? So they're necessary, but their job is a whole lot different. And I think that a lot of confusion places is where they think that they are us. They think they are the actual fighters. They think they are the generals. They think they are the infantrymen, the pilots. They're not. Especially in regards to calling the shots, they're not.
Right.
I believe that it's kind of like alcoholism. Yeah, I'm drinking here, but I'm not an alcoholic. Alcoholism never really
Not really.
messed my life up. It never harmed anybody, so I'm not an alcoholic. But there are actually those who are, and when they recover, they help out others. So I don't know what it feels like to be an actual racist. So talking to white people, I don't know how to. I don't come across that standpoint as a person who's an ex-racist or used to be racist, or I'm not within that white privilege system. So a person who's in that system, who's recovering from it, they can probably, if they're speaking from the standpoint of one who oppresses, who wishes to stop oppressing, talking to white folks, that might be beneficial. That might work. But what they cannot do is be like, I'm the one who's oppressed. I'm the one who has racism inflicted upon me, and this is how I can dismantle racism. That's not the case. If they're like, I used to be very racist. These are the things that I observed. These are things my family did. These are the things I used to do. I used to vote this way. I used to think this way. This is how you dismantle it. If they come from that type of way, that avenue of approach, I think that can be successful. Because I can't help. The help that I can give white folks is but so far. As a matter of fact, I don't even want to talk to all of them. I rather them do it. I'd rather them dismantle racism. I don't want to. I'm tired of talking about it. I'm tired of a whole lot of it. A lot of times when a white person says, "It's more racism's a whole lot," I'll say that's because you don't. If you talk about racism more, if you dismantle it, if it was over tomorrow, I get to go the fuck home. You will never hear from me again. But yeah, they need to fix that shit.
I think one of the things that you're talking about, this phenomenon where these white allies they'll help out, and then they'll feel as if they were ever in the same amount of danger or harm as the people who were going into it. Like I think one of the most ridiculous things that Malcolm and I read within the last week was someone who said, "You know what? I have she was a white woman. I have a black son or a black adopted son."
I already know where this is going. Oh God, I already know this is going.
And she said, "And you know what? Ever since I adopted him, I've lost some of that white privilege." And I was like, no, that's not how it works.
It's not how any of this works.
If going back, I guess on the football analogy, if it's like if the coach who is on the side, who's like outside of the stadium on the radio, and he was like, "Hey, I need you to do this, blah 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 blah." And then the people who are actually on the field are the ones getting hurt. And then after the game, the coach is like, "Man, I was really scared out there. I thought I was gonna die." It's like, no, like you're kind of mistaking where
you
you
in
were
the
from.
skybox. You in the skybox,
exactly.
coach. I'm sorry.
And so when people do that, I think, and I say that a lot. I think that a lot of these white allies, they'll get into these discussions and they'll be there with us, talking about or approaching these racist people who are leaving these comments, and then they're like, "Yeah, man, I was right there with you. Like, that was tough." It's like, I guess. I mean, I'm appreciative, but it's like it's not the same. When you're telling your white brother like to stop calling me a chink, it's not the same as when he called me a chink. So it's like,
right. There's something that I wanted to touch on, going back to the mountaintop analogy. I think what you were talking about, Johnny, and hype, basically preventing those who are up top who are being racist or classist or sexist, throwing the stones down.
Yeah.
I truly think there are some allies out there, no matter what fight you're in, who believe that they're actually not up there in those oppressor populations, that they're not up there on the mountaintop. And I think when they realize that, yes, we understand your character may not be the one throwing the stones, but you still at least look like or can identify, arguably from a societal standpoint, those in those oppressed populations. So I'm sorry, you are on the mountaintop in some way, shape, or form. So even though you're fighting with us, as you said, you're kind of a spy. You're behind the curtains. You're behind enemy lines. You're trying to dismantle it from the inside while we're trying to destroy the castle walls on the outside. But we don't. It's bad when it gets to the point they're like, "Well, no, I was down there fighting with you down there fighting." It's like
they don't know their place in more ways than one. They don't know their place.
There it is. So okay, so if I may ask a question, so what is their place? I think that's where a lot of allies in whatever fight you are in, I think that's where they lose sight of, and that kind of goes back to humility. So what is their place? What do they talk about? How do they talk about it? Things of that nature. I mean, can we touch on that?
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. Rain, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think obviously within this last week, whatever what's been going on the page, I'm a little biased. Obviously, I'm not as extreme into thinking that like, oh, I don't need them or I'm not appreciative. I am. I really am. I legitimately am, because there's a lot of white allies who do a good job. That their role is to serve as a messenger. For me, I think that that's what is most needed.
Liaison.
They need to serve as messengers. So if I'm saying that, hey, this movie's coming out, the Ghost in the Shell live action movie is coming out, and they're whitewashing it. This is bad. Then, as a white ally, you should say, hey, that's wrong. I support him and I support his community, so I'm not going to watch it. And if someone in my circle of friends is, talking about it, then I'm going to tell them that, hey, this is what's going on. And I think that that's what they should be saying, as opposed to saying, oh, this is whitewashing, or this is hurting me, I think that if you the way that I approach issues within black community is that, if I'm talking about Tammy Rice or if I'm talking about Sandra Bland, these are issues that aren't affecting me, and I have to speak on it from the perspective of this is wrong, this is affecting somebody else. This isn't affecting me, but this is affecting one of our family members. So I think that when you talk about it like that, that is how you make some progress. If you know that you are always speaking on it from an outside perspective, and you're not trying to pretend like you were even in the bubble in the first place.
Don't be Rachel Dolezal.
That's interesting. The point you made up. While you're a person of a man of color, you're not black. So I think that I think it's even worse now. Realizing this is it makes the allies that attack you or act the fool in your stuff look even worse. But you're kind of like a model to follow. To if one were to address what's take place with the black community in regards to racism and stuff like that. You're not black, so you you know you understand how that works.
Mhm.
That's
And
hilarious in hindsight now looking back at it.
I mean,
Well,
it's okay.
well, I was gonna say, and I said this on the page when you made that post about allies, that the vast majority of the time when I've seen you post or when we had our discussion when we met up in Atlanta or whatever, you don't speak for us. I don't speak for you. I don't speak for women. I don't speak for those who are disabled because I am able-bodied. I am just an advocate. I am the messenger that needs to get this message out to the masses. And if at any point in time I step out of line, please check me. And Rainier, you have done that many times, and that is something that allies need to do. Like, look, self-check, and then, hey, if you feel that I'm stepping out of line, I will take it into advisement. I will pray about it, meditate, think about it, whatever, and go from there. And I laugh when people try to come for you, and I'm sitting there looking at him like, he doesn't speak for us. He's getting the message out. And then there have been plenty of times where like I had to address misogyny that black men were perpetuating on the page or outside of the page. And Rainier, he just like, Malcolm, you got it. That's what Ally does. He doesn't say, no, and I'm going to speak towards misogyny of the black men as an agent. No, he doesn't do that. He lets me handle that. I'm going to, and you know what I'm saying? Like we know what we can and what we can't do and how to articulate it the best way possible. And if we make mistakes, we're not perfect at this. We make mistakes,
But we
but
have
we are
like
humble enough to check ourselves.
Yeah.
yeah, like we're going to make mistakes,
Right.
like say for example, one time there was this it was like a group of folks. It was like this gay it was a gay issue, and I said that I'm not a gay activist. And all these gay folks attacked the fuck out of me. And it's like, no, 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 no. What I'm trying to explain is that I'm not a gay activist, but I stand for gay rights. Like they still attacking and stuff. I was trying to point out, I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm not against. It's like I'm not a gay activist. Like if this was the medical community, I am the brain surgeon, right? If someone has a sports injury, I'll send this guy to the sports doctor. We're all friends. Like I support medicine. I support the medical facility as a medical community as a whole. But as a brain surgeon, if someone's pregnant, I'm going to send you to the pregnancy clinic. I'm not going to. I have them on speed
OB.
dial. Here we go like this. I'm not going to, pretend that that's my craft because I'm going to mess it up. You know, I cut cancer out of brains. This person deals with broken ankles. This person deals with pregnancies. This person deals with back issues.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we're all on speed dial here. So just
We have
because
a
I do brain
specific
surgery,
task.
that doesn't mean that I'm anti-pregnancy or I'm anti, sports medicine or anti child care. That makes no sense. I
Right.
specialize in this. I specialize primarily in racism and sexism, and all the other stuff I'm still learning. And if there's anything, everyone has my support, and whatever it may be, I'll try to do the best I can. But for the most part, the primary fighters of this situation over here is that fighter of that situation over there. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
It's almost like being a boxer or I'm a taekwondo stylist, and there's a boxer over there. I'm not a boxer, but I support boxing. You know what I mean? So it's like my fight is different, but
Yeah.
we all are a team.
Yeah, like one of the ways that I try to explain this concept is the Bill Cosby issue. I'll talk about the Bill Cosby issue, but I have to be very nuanced about it. When I'm writing about it, I can't. My analysis can't come from the perspective of, oh, this is, like I can't come at it from the perspective of me criticizing black men or or black culture. I have to come at it from the perspective um, of male entitlement and patriarchy.
Oh yeah.
Or I have to come at it from the perspective of me supporting the victims. And that's when, as Malcolm was saying, that's when I have to sort of tap Malcolm and say, hey, if you need to go ahead and address the men who are, if you need to address black men, then, that's your fight. Like, I can't do that. And sometimes I'll get these requests from these page members, and they'll say, hey, I want you to go ahead and talk about, misogyny among black men, and I can't say that. If an Asian woman were to say, hey, talk about misogyny among Asian men, totally, like I'm right there. So
Yeah, and like Flynn.
I think that's what you have to do, and I think that for a lot of people who are sort of getting into it, whether they're white allies or whether they're anybody else who's trying to be an ally for somebody else, they have to know that even though they're really, really passionate about something, they have to understand that maybe it's not their place to talk about that thing. Like maybe they aren't the best person to handle.
Don't talk about it like an expert. I guess that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert on sexism because I don't face sexism. I'm not a woman. So I don't face what women face in this country and internationally. So I cannot be an expert about it. I can just only be a messenger based on my own research, what I've been taught, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give for those who are listening. Just don't think you're an expert. You're not. There's somebody out there that's going to know more than you in some way, shape, or form, which, like I said, I cannot stress the humility factor with it. Because you will get humbled real quick, depending on what subject you think you know about.
You know what? Matter of fact, when I say I specialize in racism and sexism, the sexism portion is the male privilege portion. I primarily speak from a position of male privilege.
Right.
Matter of fact, I'll see stuff like in the military, right? A person will say something like, be a young soldier, say something like, how come they get to have long hair and we don't, or something like this. It's like ridiculously dumb stuff, How come they get to have a skirt with their Class A uniform? It's like, I mean,
do you want one? I mean, we could.
Yeah, it's like,
maybe, I guess we could we can.
It's just the person speaking from a position of male privilege, because in the military is by large male dominated. Women make up 20% of the military population instead of like 50, 58, 55, like how the general population is. And everything's male centered first. Women are considered secondary. Like everything is subsequent. Like, okay, let's change the uniform this way, that way, because we have women now. So there's this huge play of catch up there. That's part of male privilege. It's centered on us. We are the default folks to die in combat. So that's how male privilege operates. You know what I mean? And
you are an expert in that.
Yes, male privilege.
That aspect.
A woman says something about sexism, and she's attacked. While I say something about sexism, and it's like there's no attack at all. I am beyond their defenses. They can't say the same shit they say to me with a woman. Like, a woman say something about sexism. She's in her emotions. She's being emotional. I say the same thing, and it's like I don't get that emotional thing. I may say it just as emphatically, even more so. I may call folks stupid in their face, and I don't get called the emotional one. So it's like,
or the angry black man.
That's how. Well, I'm not called angry black man when it comes to sexism, but that's how male privilege works.
Right.
There's a privilege with the fact that I can I don't have to worry about someone calling me the emotional, woman or whatever else. In regards to race, oh yeah, that trope is there, angry black man. You're being confrontational. That type of shit. That's crazy.
Why are you so mean? So you're confusing passion with anger, and sometimes they interchange. But what's wrong with being?
Studies have shown that white folks will they'll register, anger in a black person's face or demeanor when it's not even there. So it's like,
Hmm. It's like a psychology study. I'm curious.
yes, it's a psychological study,
Okay.
and it's like, if these folks get, the emotional expressions wrong, or they think anger more than they should, then maybe they should stop. They should, like, pause on that and realize what's being said versus, trying to shut someone up based on what they think their emotions are.
Hmm.
You know, interestingly, as a black man, as a black male, always thought that there's power in, deterring that. Like, I'm not
Hmm.
angry. I'm not angry at all, and just, reassuring folks that I'm calm and cool and stuff like that. I think that's a big part of the black community or black culture as a whole.
Hmm.
President Obama always seems cool, never really seems angry. And it's like black people are not allowed to be angry. I mean, it's pretty much how it
Which
is.
is
I wrote an article on
annoying.
that. I think the name of the article was, "Excuse me, is that allowed?" And I talk about the angry black man trope or angry black trope. And I pointed out that, I'm going to cease doing that. That's yielding to the system. You know what I mean? It's limiting too.
Hmm.
It subtracts from one's character. How come a white person has full range of emotion while a black person cannot? A white person
Without
is never
consequence.
accused without
Right.
consequence too. A white man is capable of displaying white rage, and I define rage as violence and anger combined. So a white person is capable of, showing white rage, walk around with weapons and shit like that, right? Say that I'll shoot, federal agents. They say shit like that. Folks in Oregon don't mean shit, man. They can do that. Like, a black person can't even be angry or look angry or upset in a discussion on racism. Really?
Yeah, and
Who made this shit up?
I think that part of it comes from a lot of the ways that we create storytelling for white people and people of color. I think that when you're discussing white rage or white romantic love or white frustration or white depression, there's always this thought, at least that I think society likes to believe, that there are reasons why they're mad. Oh, the guys in Oregon, they're mad because somebody took their land, or they were stalking this lady because there was a misunderstanding.
Hmm.
Whereas for people of color, I feel like there's a different response where, like, if a black person were to get angry, they feel like, oh my gosh, like, why are they doing this, or they feel like that is like their innate response, or that's naturally how they are, like, oh my gosh, like, you know like
Yeah.
they they,
They
they, they never.
naturalize the anger or
Yeah, exactly.
frustrations of folks of color while
And
they
Hmm.
rationalize the anger or frustrations of white folks, even when even when the logic is not there, when it's not
exactly.
justified.
And it's symbolic when you're talking about mass shootings, and
Oh.
how there's always that response of a mental illness, and how that is the default response. Whereas if, say, for example, the shooter is Asian or the shooter is Middle Eastern, the response is, oh well, it's because they were disgruntled, and that
They had to
they
be a
were
terrorist.
exactly, they were religious extremists, and so you know
Yeah.
There are many double
Oh
standards in
my
this
God.
society that we have to
Yeah.
call out. And you touching on the mass shooters, especially me being here on the East Coast and dealing with the tragedy in Charleston, South Carolina, to see people not just online but in real life here in South Carolina trying to. They looked at first Dylan Roof's mental health and then went from there, and it's like, you can't tell me. And people say we talk about race too much or flip it, but no, let's get real and let's flip the script from a societal standpoint. You put Dylan Roof and give him any other shade of color and classify him as any other race, and we're not looking at his mental health first. We're just not.
Oh
Society does
yeah.
not do that, even though there are rates that are online. Google is your friend. Look up the rates of mental health issues in the black community reported. Look them up in the Asian community, things of that nature, and notice different aspects of why mental health is an issue in these communities, but why we don't even ask about those when it comes to certain crimes or even with certain victims. So when it comes to, like I said, a Dylan Roof, and he gets the benefit of the doubt of, oh, well, he must have been a troubled youth, you know, and they address him as a kid and say that he's a kid, all the while people are saying that Tamir Rice is grown, and Tamir Rice was all at 12 years old. 12,
Oh,
what was it,
exactly.
12, 13? And
12.
he's 12 years old and considered grown, but Dylan Roof is a disgruntled kid. The double standards are everywhere, and
Yeah.
going back to that mentality of anger and versus mental health and things of that nature, and the excuses made, it is troublesome.
In regards
something we
to
need to correct.
Dylan Roof, I got kind of mad at President Obama on this one, and I'll say straightforward. I'm a supporter of the president. I voted for him. But when he hurts me, you know, when he lets me down, he lets me down. It's kind of like having a favorite rapper. I'm fully capable of saying when they suck. They put on a whack song,
Right.
and you know,
It's like that wasn't
President Obama put on a whack song when Dylan Roof happened, and he blamed the gun. He blamed the fact that he was capable of getting the gun, and it's like, no, sir, the ideology was the enabler to what he did, not the fucking gun. I mean, the ideology is a problem. Is a severe problem. Please, can you address this? I mean, fuck, man, you're black, you know. And it seems like
I think he had to take a step back and
he's paralyzed.
Yeah.
It seems like he feels that he's paralyzed from saying anything in regards to racism because he is black. It seems like, you know, a part of white privilege is also the privilege to have the freedom to discuss racism almost. I mean, Bernie Sanders, he gives no fucks, you know?
None.
I think one of the things about one of the most interesting stereotypes, I think, on contrasting ends between black folks and white folks is that for white folks, there is always this lingering thought that they're innocent, and you need to figure out what that thing is, whereas for black folks, there's always this one reason why they should be guilty, and you need to figure out what that thing is. And I think that when you look at the way that we sort of address issues, like, say, for example, Tamir Rice, if you knew nothing about him, the way, like, if you were to say, hey, a kid got shot, he was black, the immediate response of the public is, well, what did he do? What did he have on him? What was he wearing?
Why was he playing with a toy gun?
The immediate response is, oh, well, what was it like in his home? You know, was he okay? Did he have Burger King? You know, is his tummy okay? Like, I think that there's always that default to figuring out, like, okay, well, we need to find the honest truth about this white serial killer versus, you know, how they portray black citizens who were killed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. God damn, yeah, absolutely.
So how do we fix it? We know we have solutions, and at times we're hesitant to give solutions because not everybody knows the problem. And personally, I feel like the majority of people, regardless if they're listening or not, I hypothesize that the majority of people don't even know what the true problems are. So you can't change people. So one solution I have, how do we change that? How do we fix those narratives that have been in place for centuries, arguably? One way is to continue to have these honest talks, unadulterated, honest, humble, and letting people know, like, look, this is a supremacy issue. This is a systemic issue. And we are just telling you our experiences backed by fact that you could easily Google yourself. And the more we communicate with these things, as opposed to stop talking about racism or stop talking about sexism or classism or whatever. Stop talking about not talking about something never solved anything. I don't recall a time where if I did talk about something, a problem was solved. Like growing up in school, like if I didn't ask my folks or a teacher, you know, for help, or like if I had a problem with something and it just magically solved. It's the same thing with these discussions. It's the exact same thing conceptually with these discussions. So one obvious solution is to talk about it, but not just talk about it and have these unadulterated talks and being honest, but listening. If you are in a position of privilege, you have to listen and listen objectively. We obviously know not all white people. We obviously know not all men, not all you insert that blank somewhere else. We get that. We're talking conceptually. So take yourself out of the equation, humble yourself, take yourself out of the equation, and listen to what people say in their stories, because obviously these stories are true. And
Yes.
that's a solution that I believe that people aren't wanting to have right now. I think in this society we have an instant gratification issue. This is a long fight.
Yeah.
And that's just, it is what it is. So I mean, if you're in it for the long haul, if you want to sit down and do the leg work, dirty work, let's talk. Let's have these talks. That's one solution that I think that is not appreciated as much as it should be.
Yeah.
I think one of the ways that you can sort of expand on this is to allow people from the entire spectrum of opinions to be able to voice their stories. I think that when I know it's sort of an oversimplification, but I think that when all the narratives that we have of, say, for example, Asian people, one of the things I'm really passionate about is how do we get over the model minority myth? How do we get over this idea that Asian people are robotic and that they're all subservient and they're all do-gooders? How do you go ahead and combat that? And one of the ways that I've figured out is by showcasing the stories of people who aren't representative about that. So that's why I talk about issues like the impoverished people in Chinatown. That's why I talk about people who are Asian who are homeless, or Asian people who
Human
are
trafficking.
Exactly. And so when you allow all these different stories and voices to come out, then you start to see, wow, there's variety, and there are people who aren't like that. And I think that's one of the problems, is that we have such an oversaturation of media that showcases one story about what a black man is, or what a black woman is, or what an Asian man is, whereas the stories and the narratives told about what whiteness is incredibly vast. Like, there are movies about white trans people, about white people who are porn stars, or all these different types of characters and all these different types of scenarios. And I think that for a lot of people, that internally you start to see white people as, they're so diverse, and there's so many different, there's so many layers to them, whereas when all you see is Jackie Chan in Rush Hour, then all you think of is Jackie Chan from Rush Hour.
Yeah. I think the solution is something really grand. First and foremost, we need to continue to have these discussions. We need to have proper abolitionists in place in power in regards to our community, like the black and Asian community, also the black and Latin community. All of us, all our non-white brothers and cousins. We need to brothers, sisters, and cousins. We need to reunify as we did back in the past. We need to realize that past actually existed. There's a lot of black and Asian folks who don't realize that there were tons and tons of Asian Black Panthers. Things like that, and the reason why this model minority myth exists now. The fact that that's not how it always were in the United States when Asian folks arrived. So know that didn't always exist, and know why it exists now, to separate us. So the best thing we can do from there is reunify ourselves, and then stand against, I hate to put it this way, but the man. And we do that by supporting black businesses. We unify our businesses as one. In DC, there's a lot of Korean businesses and stuff like that, small businesses and stuff, and they kind of see the black people how white folks see black folks and try to stand off. Quit doing that shit. You know, you're a part of our community too. You're fucking
Mm-hmm.
here. Look, you know, the Korean corner store owner over there, that family's been there ever since I've been a kid. He's been there ever since the fucking 60s. Come on now. You're a part of this community too, so act like it. Um, we need more lawyers of color, because these lawyers, guess what? Not only will they defend and prosecute folks properly, but these lawyers will then become judges. You see where this is going? You know,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like we need. It's funny how the Jews, man, like they get a lawyers. We can do the same thing. There's minorities who've done this before us. So we need more lawyers who will then become judges. You know, yeah. So that, you know, and also these lawyers will also become politicians. And if we have politicians who don't forget where they've come from or where their
Mm-hmm.
interests lie, the interests of the community in which they come from, they'll stop the gerrymandering shit and all this other crap. You know, this goes for Democrats as well as Republicans. I don't care who you are. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if you're a Republican, you got a long uphill climb to change the climate over there, but do it. Don't be afraid. Fucking do that shit. You know, don't toe the party line. Change the party. You know. So yeah, those are solutions I have, and like Malcolm said, these solutions are they may take place. We might be dead by the time any of this ever take place. I make peace with this. I make peace with the fact that I'm not going to see a lot of the progress that, you know, we're supposed to make. You
Mm-hmm.
know, one person asked me, "What do you think what are you doing? What is you doing?" I'm like, "Look, you know, I write a lot. You know, like, okay, being a military guy, I've done things to save folks' lives from like a bird's eye view.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know who I am. I don't know who they are. I have no idea how many lives I've saved or how many, you know, actual targets actually were found and, you know, acquired, or I don't know, you know, but I do know that exists. And when I write the articles I write, and I think, you know, you can probably feel this too. When you write the blogs you write, there's really no telling how many lives you touch and what type of changes you're making.
Mm-hmm.
But you are laying the groundwork for the future, though. I point out to my friend that I don't want to be missed. I want to be remembered. It's about legacy. And honestly, these things, you know, the groundwork we're laying right now, we're probably not going to see the results of it in our lives. It's probably going to take place in 2060 or 2080 where we see this change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but just because we don't see it literally tomorrow, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't fight for it. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense.
Definitely.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, though, man, Malcolm, you hit the nail on the head.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to take a while, but there are solutions.
It's gonna take a while, but it's worth it. At the end of the day, if you see it's worth it, and you just acknowledge that this is bigger than you, then it also makes it a little bit. At times, it can make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I want to bring the show to a close. So, Malcolm, do you have any last words, last statements or whatnot?
Follow me on Facebook if you want to, Malcolm Bevel. Find me on LLAG, the Love Life of Asian Guy, in the comment section. I post from time to time. I might not post as often within the next few weeks, but best believe I'm watching, I'm reading, whether it be health issues or social issues. I'm here if you have any questions.
All right. Rain?
You know where to find me. Hello, I'm an Asian guy. Again, I post every day, multiple times a day, and things are getting really interesting. So if you want to be in on the action, if you want to be on sort of the ground floor, there's a lot of activity, and it's a good time to be on the page. So check it out, read it, read some of the posts, and keep us in mind.
All right. This is Johnny Silvercloud, a soul brother number one of a kind. Got some for your soul and some for your mind. You find me right here on Onyx Truth. You also follow me on Twitter on that Twitter handle right there, and I'm also on Facebook all over the place. Also do photography, which is found on Flickr. Johnny Silvercloud. Google that name. All right, that's the end of the show. We're out of here. Peace.